everybody, and welcome to the very first Social Influencer Series, where we interview the leading sales and marketing thought leaders in our world today. Today, I'm interviewing Mr. Nick Foster. Nick was the SVP of Marketing at North American technology powerhouse Softchoice, where he and the SLT drove the revenues north of $1 billion per year. Nick is one of the most seasoned sales and marketing executives in Canada, and all around Mr. Nice Guy. So I'm really happy that he's with me today. Nick, welcome aboard.
Good morning, Amar.
Thank you for being here. Today, Nick, you head up Culture by Brand, which is a boutique consulting practice that empowers sales leaders, well, company leaders to build better cultures. Tell me a bit about that and your journey in your career so far, please.
Of course. Well, I think that so many workplaces aren't that healthy, and I believe that we actually owe it to people to create great workplaces. And so my mission in life is to help leaders create sustainable, values-based cultures. Really, it's about creating great workplaces. You know, I started my career in selling many years ago, and I rose up through the ranks as a salesperson, became a sales manager, and then over many years took on a senior leadership position in sales, and then eventually became, as you said, the SVP of marketing at Softchoice. And I think that a lot has changed over the past number of years, and especially the big change has been really the advent of the internet and social selling.
So tell me a bit about social selling, Nick. I mean, the buzzword, the term itself has only been coined about maybe 2.5 years ago. So in your definition, from a marketing, from a sales perspective, just give the audience the goods. What's social selling?
Well, you know, I've always believed that people are out there with problems and they're actually looking for solutions. And part of what good selling is helping customers to find the right solution. Social selling is really simply using the internet to help people who are out there searching for solutions to their problems to find that in a less aggressive, more helpful way, which is really all about using the internet to support them more effectively in finding the solutions to their problems. You know, in the old days, we had to basically cold call and interrupt people and try to find, people that had the problem. These days, people are identifying themselves using the internet as people with that problem. And if you put the right information in the right places, they will find it and find you.
Wow, there's a lot of good information there, Nick. So because people are going online more and more, because people are searching for problems, why is it that salespeople aren't following the crowd? You know, the number one thing we know as salespeople, the number one thing we're taught as salespeople is go where your customers are. That's why we go to trade shows, in the offline world. So why aren't salespeople today going to the quote-unquote online trade shows, the virtual summits, the seminars? Why aren't they going online? Why aren't they finding solutions to their customers' problems?
Well, this is actually, the big opportunity is for people to do exactly that. And what's been missing in a way is a great partnership between sales and marketing, because salespeople need to be armed with really good material that they can share in those environments. It's not about blasting it out on email. It's about offering the right information at the right time with the right person who's got the right problem. And so it being very targeted and very direct. And so you really need to have a great partnership. Often what I find is that marketing departments are still stuck in old ways themselves, and maybe they're using some of the social media tools, but they're not really thinking about the primary issue is about accelerating sales performance using the tools that are available today, including social media.
So the partnership between sales and marketing, talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, there's always been a tussle between sales, always marketing. Marketing folks always feel that salespeople have very large egos, let's just say that. And salespeople always feel like marketing doesn't understand them, that they produce these marketing qualified leads coming through the funnel are a big disappointment to salespeople. So by using content marketing, if I'm understanding you correctly, and maybe I'm adding the word too early in the conversation, but you're saying by salespeople using the right content marketing from the marketing department, they can accelerate the sales process.
Yeah, so let's just imagine that you're in a company and your company has a particular product set or services set. There has to be somebody in that company that has a view that is unique and interesting, that if that view was generated out there in the marketplace, people would find it interesting. The difficulty is that marketing thinks that somehow it's about features and functions, and it isn't. It's really all about that unique perspective. If they like your unique perspective and they like the way you sort of act and they like your brand, if you will, then they'll buy from your company, or at least consider your company as one of the options. So what has to happen is marketing has to look around inside the company and find those opportunities to create that unique perspective that will be helpful to people who have the problem. And then build something that's useful, a buying guide or a helpful, if maybe it's video tips that are put onto YouTube about how to use the products or how to install the products. And it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be specifically about your products. It should be about generally information that's helpful to customers. The more you try to promote in the middle of that, the more people shut down and turn off and won't listen. So it's about creating that useful information and then putting that out to your sales organization and asking them to promote it and share it. Adding it to their LinkedIn profile is helpful information for people out there in the marketplace. Now I might go to some of those virtual forums you're talking about where people are discussing their problems or posting their problems and asking for help and solutions. Now I can actually respond. The salespeople can respond to those with information that seems to be helpful rather than just simply promoting my product and my company. We all don't trust it when somebody's just basically out there selling us something. We don't trust it. But if they're helping us with our problem, then we're asking ourselves, well, what else did they do? What products did they sell? And we're more open to hearing what that company has to offer.
So basically, if I understand you, it's add value first, help first, bring something to the table first as a salesperson yourself, and then let the conversation naturally turn towards a sales-based conversation, if you will.
Completely. Yep.
Okay. So, Nick, I guess the next question that I have is, where is company management in all this? Where are the sales leaders? Where are the marketing leaders? I mean, you're an innovator. You've always been ahead of the curve. I know for a fact that you've adopted social media at a very early stage, very early cycle. But Softchoice was one company. There's thousands and thousands of companies throughout the world. Why aren't more companies getting into social media and social selling?
Well, I mean, frankly, Amar, I had to have a little bit of a realization myself about social media because I was asking myself a question, why would anybody want to listen to me? Why would I tweet? What would anybody find interesting about what I have to say? And, what I had to realize was that it wasn't about that at the beginning. At the beginning, it was really about understanding my customers better. And so using things like Google Alerts to actually put down a few words, to track my customers, for example, or key issues in my industry so that I would get alerted to anything that came up on a regular basis about my customers or about those keywords that were, key topics in the industry. So it was really a listening tool. Asking my, customers what they were interested in, was one thing, but actually just, listening to them on Twitter, if they were posting on Twitter about their problems, it was really more a listening tool. And so I had to realize that, if I just paid attention to what was going on out there using the various listening tools, that was a start. Then, of course, if I was interested in actually broadcasting a useful message, then I can use the social media mechanisms to broadcast that message as well. But it first started with listening. And then it went to, okay, I have a unique perspective here. How do I get that message out to the marketplace? We looked at things like, for example, a few years ago, VMware had a licensing change. And it was a very complicated problem for customers to work through. And so what we did is actually worked on a buying guide. And within a day of the announcement of that particular licensing change, we had that buying guide published. It was on the web. And that people didn't find it automatically by itself, but when they started searching up VMware licensing changes, we bought some Google words, and all of a sudden that buying guide started to show up. It's exactly what they were looking for, and so thousands of customers who didn't know Softchoice and didn't maybe even buy from us were now using that buying guide to understand the issues that were going on in their marketplace, and that was building a more positive experience with our brand, with our company, so that if a sales rep did call them at some point in time, it was a much warmer conversation. They were already willing to trust us in a sense.
Yeah, you raise a really good point. I think the content that we put out as companies, as individuals, it really helps build our brand overall, right, Nick? So yeah. It's interesting that in the new world order, if you will, the digital funnel has so much credibility, so much power, and yet most companies today are not even tapping into the full potential of these funnels. Buying guides, white papers, any resources, any assets that you as a company could build and bring to the fore. So talk to me about content marketing. Obviously, from a sales perspective, the content will be different. From marketing's perspective, it's going to be different. What is the ideal mix, if you will, of the right content, and how do you deliver it at the right time?
Well, so when I talk about the partnership that has to exist, a great partnership between sales and marketing, it really is about recognizing fundamentally we have this funnel we're trying to work through. Out there in the world are all the people with those problems, and they're maybe, beyond what you might describe as suspects. And what marketing has to do is put information out there that somehow attracts people with that problem to become aware of your company's possibility in solving that problem. And that you might sort of call that suspecting. At some point in time, that information has to move from, let's say the customer now expresses interest, has asked for that buying guide, maybe they gave you their email address as a result of getting that buying guide. Now they're into the prospect phase. And I think marketing still has to do work to qualify that prospect, to move it forward. You just can't take a list of people who downloaded a buying guide and send it to the sales organization and say, have a good time and follow up on all these great leads. Right. You have to move it forward. And moving it forward means, using some sort of process to further cull down that list of people to discover, are they really interested, and is it now worth the moving this forward to the sales organization, handing off that marketing qualified lead to the sales organization, because now the only thing to do is have a salesperson involved. So you don't want to use salespeople too early. You don't want to use them. They're very expensive and very important role. So you use them at the right time in the sales process. So if there's more resources that marketing can have to qualify, that's a useful thing in order to pass on the right leads to the sales organization. Once the sales organization gets hold of that opportunity, there still is a role for marketing in terms of providing information. It may be more information that helps those customers to further make that decision. Information that the sales organization gets from marketing has at their disposal and can make available to that customer at the right moment of the conversation.
Gotcha. So those are some of the best practices that you would recommend, right? So
yes.
So basically, if I understand it, Nick, don't get the salespeople involved too quickly.
Correct.
Keep them super happy by giving them more qualified leads, not just here's a buying guide, as you say.
Yeah.
And give them more chances to go to bat with success opportunities as well. So, okay, so given all that information, where are salespeople, what can salespeople do? Let me ask you that. What can salespeople do on a practical basis to get started today? Where would you recommend that they start?
Well, it's interesting. I was leading a course at Schulich recently on sales management, and I had 20 sales managers in the room, and very few were using Twitter. And, I think you actually have to be on Twitter and start to think about, what are the issues in our industry, and start to use the right search methods inside Twitter to find, who's speaking about those issues. You can follow your competition. And stay right on top of exactly what they're doing, because they may be announcing that information on Twitter as well. I mentioned this before, using Google Alerts to follow your customers or follow issues, and just collecting that information that's being posted every day. One of the sales managers called me back after the course and said, I put this topic on Google Alerts, and the next day I got an announcement of a customer's introduction of a new product. So I was right on top of it, and I felt good that I could know what was going on in the industry. So Google Alerts. Having a great LinkedIn profile is important. And I think what you can do there is actually make sure that you're seeing the opportunity to broadcast information to your network about your company. So you have to amplify the network. One of the things we did at Softchoice was asked everybody in the company to connect with everybody in the company. And that might seem like a strange thing to do, but what it actually did was exposed all kinds of networking opportunities beyond the company. I got a call from a sales rep in Vancouver who said, I've been trying to get into this company, and it's been taking me a long time, but I noticed you have a contact in there. Wow. Would you be willing to introduce me to that company? And as it happened, I was going to Vancouver, and so I took that person over to visit with the company that he was trying to get into. We walked around, toured by my friend, and met the IT people that we were looking to talk to, and started that conversation. So that's another really simple thing people can do right now in terms of using LinkedIn to find opportunities out there in the marketplace.
I want to talk to you about Twitter because you've mentioned it. Twitter is the world's biggest digital river of news and opportunities. For me personally, I use Twitter all the time, and I can say confidently a few of the opportunities in my pipeline are a direct result of tweets. I have an opportunity in my pipeline right now, Nick, that it's a $60,000 opportunity. I mean, where else in the world would we have thought that a simple tool like Twitter could really expose these massive business opportunities to us, right? So, salespeople using Twitter, what should they be looking for? Now, you've talked about buying signals. You've talked about their prospects, their buyers, and just generally monitoring them, right? But is there anything specific they can do within Twitter? Do you have any best practices, perhaps?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you might be speaking to, Amar, but I think that one of the things that I think people need to do is at least be part of the conversation about their company. So, what I see is that people aren't even paying attention to what's being said about their company on things like Twitter. And that to me is a major mistake. If somebody's complaining about the service that your company offers or the products that your company offers, somebody inside that company, and if it's left to salespeople, fine, but if somebody better in that company better be responding to that complaint with a very quick response saying, let's see what we can do about taking this offline and fixing this problem. And, because you don't want to let that information just get stale out there. And it doesn't really get stale, it spoils and smells. And what I notice is that people aren't paying attention to what's going on that way about their companies. And you might look at this and say, this isn't relevant to my company or my industry. And what my point to people is that the generation that's coming up now, this is the way they think. If you look at most teenagers, they're getting their news on Twitter. That's where their news source is. And so as they become more and more part of the workforce, that's the way they are. So, you can start now and be part of the game, or you can wait later and not be part of the conversation and part of the game, which to me is a little bit of a mistake. You asked earlier, are senior managers leading the charge on social media? And what I see is that generally speaking, no. There's usually in companies somebody that's very, very excited about social media that's driving the conversation inside that company. And actually some of the people that were on the course a couple of weeks ago at Schulich tried to move this forward inside their company, and I got a request from one of them saying, man, I'm getting resistance from senior management. They're concerned about putting information out there on the web that my competitors are going to eat up.
Right.
And that's an issue, that running into that resistance from senior managers who don't understand the opportunity that's there. So what we did was just talked about simple things they could do that wouldn't run into that resistance. So you need to become more savvy yourself, and then help managers to appreciate over time, slowly but surely, the benefits of using social media. And fundamentally, to me, this is about the partnership between sales and marketing and driving more opportunities faster. And when you start from that perspective, I can't imagine that senior managers would resist.
Nick, let me ask you very plainly, is this a generational issue? Because most sales management today is in a certain age bracket. Most people entering the workforce today, the millennials, if you will, is this a generational issue? Is it a lack of understanding between two generations?
Yeah, I think there's a certain amount to that. To me, though, the issue is if you're a senior manager in a company right now hoping to somehow finish your career before social media really overtakes you, it's almost too late. The tsunami has already hit, and people need to get with the program. This is already happening. And again, Amar, I'll bring it back to practicality, because if you do this right, and you actually have that partnership between sales and marketing, and you're driving opportunities more quickly, and you're helping the sales organization to be more efficient and more effective, why wouldn't this be a good thing? I mean, the aha that I had was that, if you want to find information on your customers and make better proposals and presentations, there's a huge amount of information out there on SlideShare. I found some customers that are actually posting their strategic plan on SlideShare. Maybe they didn't know they were putting their strategic plan out there for the public, but isn't that great information to have when you're thinking about doing a presentation? Reading the information that's on the web about your customers really makes you more knowledgeable and more accurate in terms of your representations, knowing the problems they've got, and then making the right representation about the ways they can solve those problems. And people that are avoiding that or not listening to that are still going out with stock presentations and stock proposals, and they're not going to win.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. the SlideShare example is so relevant. I read recently, Nick, that nearly half of the companies today in the SMB are using SlideShare in some capacity or the other. And if you think about that, these companies, like you said, are posting information for the world to see. And as a sales professional, if you're not tapping into that, what are you doing? You have to be using this information, and this is one of the biggest challenges that we have as we're a sales training company for all intents and purposes, Nick. And the biggest challenge that we're having today with telling salespeople is, you're being told, go to these trade shows, go to these events where your customers are. Well, this is the same thing. They're leaving these digital breadcrumbs all over the internet, and it's your job to find them. And with technologies like Google Alerts and LinkedIn and Twitter, it's very easy. I'll add one more thing if I can, Nick. Recently, I had a prospect, for lack of a better word, come to me and say, you need to teach me how to monitor one of my competitors because I feel that they're stealing all of our business. And we showed them very quickly that there was a river of information flowing past them, and their competitors, and we like to say, they were socially surrounding that company. So it's not good enough today to be single-threaded. So given all that, Nick, I guess the last question to you, and I don't want to take too much of your time, but my last question to you today is, how do we bring all of this together? Just sum it up for me.
Well, I mean, I've said it before, Amar. I think that a company actually has to think about this strategically. You have to start from the end result in mind. You want to improve sales effectiveness. And so you start thinking about how do we create better leads faster, and what marketing has to do. And maybe there needs to be more people and more effort and more automation put into marketing. And we had to install a marketing automation platform in order to make this happen. But because, having individual sales reps sending out e-blasts to customers doesn't make any sense. Actually doing this through an automation platform, you can actually track that people opened emails or track that they clicked on or downloaded those white papers. That makes all the difference to understanding how to do that suspecting to prospecting piece. But it's really that linkage that we're talking about here, and people need to think about it strategically as a way of moving faster and being more effective. And that sounds good, except that when you really add it up, it's all about being more efficient as a company. If you're more efficient than your competitors, that is, you can move faster to go from suspect to close. You're actually more profitable than your competitors, or at least you have more money available to actually reinvest in products or the future and innovation in your company. And so being more profitable is really the element of how we measure ourselves as a business or success company in our industry.
Absolutely. Nick, I really want to thank you for your time today. Do you want to say something to sales professionals that are going to be viewing this? Any words of motivation, encouragement, inspiration?
Well, Amar, it's happening, and as I said earlier, it's actually the greatest opportunity for salespeople today is to actually use social media selling as a way of improving their performance. There is just so much information about our customers. When I was in sales 20 years ago, we didn't know anything about our customers except what we could ask them. And the worst thing I can think of is a sales rep calling me up on a cold call and saying, give me 20 minutes and tell me what keeps you up at night. I mean, there's so much information about me out there on the internet. If I was doing anything to pay attention and listen to what was being said, I could call up and say, I've noticed these 3 things, and therefore I could probably conclude that there's another thing that you might be interested in. Would that be fair? Let's talk. And engaging in a conversation is really so much easier these days than it used to be. So there's a great opportunity today sitting out there around social media, Amar, and I'm glad that we were able to do this interview this morning.
Yeah, really thank you, Nick, for your time. I know you're really busy, so thank you very much. And this is the very first inaugural social selling influencer series, so I'm really happy that you could be a part of it. And
well, I'll be sharing it, Amar, on my social media feed. So.
Awesome. So will we, my friend. So
okay,
thank
thanks.
you again, and we hope to invite you back real soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, take care, Nick.